Hi, this is Brennan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock Blog, and I'm here with Lady Chow Fung and Kenny to talk about The Marshall Club for this episode of Wuxia Weekend. Marshall Club is a 1981 film directed by Lau Kar-Leung. It stars Gordon Liu, Kara Hui, Robert Mak Tak-Law, Johnny Wang, and Ku Feng. It's it's basically about rival martial arts schools in Canton, and it's also kind of a Wong Fei-Hong movie. I don't know. Let's just sort of open it up by getting into you guys' initial reaction to the movie. What did you guys think of this film?
I really enjoyed it. It was a very pure movie. It felt like. I mean, they didn't try to shove any messages in our faces. It was just purely there are martial arts clubs in a region, and they are sort of vying for fame and supremacy type of thing. Like, and that was basically it. And yeah, obviously to make the movie interesting, one of the clubs is a bit more evil than the others, and they go a bit overboard, right? But I felt that all the characters were quite compelling. The fight scenes were very well done, and it was just all around very entertaining.
I enjoyed this movie a lot. I think it's a really good Kara Hui movie because I like her fluid movements in it. And the story is so simple, but yet there are so many plot twists and turns, but you don't get overwhelmed by it. Plus, there's touches of humor. And like Kenny said, the characters are very compelling, and you can, or at least I could see some people that I know in each character. And who you really think would be the bad guy really isn't the bad guy in the kind of way. But it's typical relationships among rivalry clubs, kind of an inside look at them. But it's a really good movie.
Yeah, I quite like this film. I think it number one, it gets sort of the spirit of martial arts down really solidly, which you kind of expect from Lau Kar-Leung. But I like how it uses the lion dance as sort of the introduction to that, where they explain the lion dance rules, and it sort of becomes clear that they're really talking about like the rules that govern interaction between schools themselves and the conduct that students are expected to have. And so I like that aspect. I like you guys were saying, the characters. I think that they're all quite enjoyable, and and like you said, it's a simple story. So you're not sitting there waiting for the story to come to a conclusion. You're not sort of like, oh, when is the finale going to come? And you're not on the edge of your seat waiting to see what happens. You're just kind of enjoying watching everything play out as they go from scene to scene, and they kind of take their time going from humorous rivalry between Wong Fei-Hong and Yin Lin, and then they sort of slowly move into the more serious rivalry. But even that never quite feels dire. It's more entertaining than like a it's not like a Cheng Che style rival school movie. This is and by the end that's pretty clear when you don't really have any death or
no one got horrifically injured in this movie. There was no buckets of fake blood being splattered everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. So I guess moving into the discussion of the film, it's let's begin with the characters. The primary characters in this movie are Wong Fei-Hong, played by Gordon Liu, Wang Yin-Lin, played by Robert Mak, and Wang Ju-Ying, who's his sister, played by Kara Hui. And the two Wang siblings are part of the Zheng school, and Gordon Liu's character, Wong Fei-Hong, is part of the Wu Ben school under his father, who's also a sort of notable folk hero. And they become rivals with a school run by a man named Lu Zhengfu, and he eventually recruits a master from the north, played by Johnny Wang, named Shan Zhang. And the cool thing, I think, about his character is, and so maybe we should start with him, is that he's kind of the bad guy in a way, but not really. And he's just sort of a simple-minded guy from the north who is recruited into this situation, but displays a lot of nobility over the course of the movie. And even though he and Wong Fei-hung do have a final fight with each other, it's a very sort of honorable duel of mutual respect between them.
A scholarly fight, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that they're giving each other kind of pointers in a small corridor on how they would handle the situation, and they're learning from each other. And I think that's like one of the coolest moments of the movie is that they respect each other. They're teaching each other. And as Johnny Wang is like leaving, he's practicing some of the moves that he's been taught. And, you know, he doesn't want to be caught practicing them. So, you know, it's just really scholarly and really cool. And there's no bloodshed. There's no death. And you can end a movie like that, and it still is a good movie.
Yeah, and I think that... and Johnny Wang is somebody, you see him so often playing, you know, bullying villain type characters. And here, it's just like a nice enough of a twist on it that, you know, he kind of... You get to see a little bit more of his charm and charisma. And I just think it really works. And like you said, at the end, you get that mutual respect. And I think that I don't know, I like that his character is kind of the enforcer of the rules of the martial world, or the rules between the martial clubs in this movie, where, you know, even though he's working for the bad guys, he's kind of rebuking them, but doing so in a way that allows them to save face, because saving face is also another important part of the movie. And
it's funny because the only way like he was able to sort of, yeah, as you said, enforce the rules of the martial world, or uphold the honor of the martial world, was because he himself was stronger than any of the other masters involved here. So it's really sort of highlighting a little bit of the might is right situation. But when might is in the hands of someone who is an upstanding citizen, kind of, then it's okay. But imagine if it was, you know, someone like the Liu family, who were the ones who were the strongest martial artists around. Like, it would be a very different sort of movie in that case.
That's why it's so important for people of good character to train as hard as they can to be the best, because if they don't, then the bad guys will rise above them. I think that's, and I guess that sort of brings us into the sort of mirror storyline of the Wong Fei-hung character and Wan Yinlin, because they're both quite similar. And they're both kind of sort of like light rivals of each other, but friends at the start of the movie. But Yin Lin is sort of going down this path where he's constantly going to the brothel at night and just, you know, spending his evenings relaxing. And Wong Fei-hung takes a different path of focusing more on his training. And so I guess we could start with the Wang Yinlin character, because he runs into a number of problems due to his
philandering.
Habits. Yeah. He likes to go to the brothel and uses kung fu. Essentially, it seems, to get discounts, or maybe even get out of paying anything at all. And so he essentially just, you know, is the thing that he's always doing is he'll have them like tie up his hands, and then he'll break the ropes, or he'll perform some other feat of martial arts strength. And it ends up being his undoing, because then the evil school uses that against him to get the courtesans to bind him with cowhide that he can't break through, and then they beat him up and break his legs. One of two big deceptions from the rival school. But I don't know.
You think that, you know, I was just thinking one of those things is like, surely, like, in a brothel, like, maybe the first time around you'd be impressed enough that you'd you know, give him a night for free or whatever, right? But the second, third, fourth, fifth time, you know, wouldn't you get bored? Like, it's not really changing up his routine that much, really, right? I mean, he's still snapping silk handkerchiefs and like yeah, showing off his hard qigong, right?
Well, and they do mention that might be why they ended up doing what the bad guys wanted them to do, because they were kind of fed up with him. But I don't know. It was a little unclear on how much, because he was getting he kept, whenever he brought Wong Fei-hong there, he did ask him how much money he had, and so he was going there with some money, but it didn't seem like he was spending quite enough. So I got the impression he was just spending the bare minimum and then using his kung fu to get whatever, to get whatever he could. But yeah, so but it does land him in quite a bit of trouble. And obviously the other character is Gordon Liu's Wong Fei-hong character, who's a folk hero. But in this one, I don't know, he kind of brings I thought he brought like a charming arrogance to the role. And maybe it was just the way, like the facial expressions he was making during a lot of the more humorous scenes. Like there's a sequence at the start of the movie when he and Yin Lin are at first they want to prove who's better by fighting, and then when they realize they're just going to hurt each other doing that, they decide that they're going to pick out two big guys and fight them independently, and whoever can land 6 moves first or something will win. But they both end up getting the same idea to pay off a couple of big guys in town, so just to basically take a fall. And during the fight, they're kind of mugging it for the camera, and I don't know. I thought that Gordon Liu's performance was particularly entertaining there.
Yeah, I think both of them did very well in the sort of the showmanship side of things, of hamming up the fights with the big guys, and I don't know, yeah, but Gordon Liu is amazing in just about everything I've ever seen him in, so I can't really. It's really hard to criticize. I mean, he does so well in serious stuff or in comedy stuff, and you did mention that both Gordon Liu and Kara Hui are great at acting while they're sort of doing the kung fu, and I think that's definitely true. So one of the scenes towards the end where they're sort of on the cloths and they're trying to practicing their stances, and you can sort of really see the sort of the struggle in his face, and when he's carrying the rice sacks as well, like he does a very good job of conveying the struggle, despite the fact it's probably not, obviously not sacking 5 sacks of rice on his back for the scene, but he did a very convincing job of that. But I think you mentioned about his arrogance as well, and I think this is supposed to be depicting like a young version of Wong Fei-hong, like before he sort of comes into his own as a martial artist, right? So it makes sense. I mean, everyone's young once, and you can be quite rash and think too highly of yourself or whatever. And definitely portrayed it very well there, I think.
No, and I think it does make sense because he is sort of learning life lessons over the course of the movie, and so it ends up working. What about the Kara Hui character, the Wang Juying character?
I loved her. I thought her hot-headedness was pretty funny. That she's always trying to, not on purpose, but she makes trouble for her brother as the story goes. Just with her hot-headedness, she ends up getting him kind of beat up by picking the big brutish guys at the at the beginning, and she sends her whole school over to defend her brother at one point, so to take kind of revenge, but it was a complete misunderstanding because the brother couldn't talk. So she's good at creating a whole lot of trouble in her hot-headedness, which is unusual for one of her characters.
Yeah, she had a real sort of fiery spirit in this one, and I thought it complemented the other characters really well, and it worked well for the story. And I always like when she and Gordon Liu are in a movie together. They really have chemistry that's kind of more platonic. Like it's not like like in this movie it was a little unclear what their chemistry was supposed to be, because I didn't read it as like a romantic thing, though I suppose it could have been. But I feel like but they tend to do really well together, in my opinion, when they're not like as sort of like a just platonic pairing, and I think part of it is because to me they both are really good at acting while they're doing martial arts. Do you know what I mean? They're really good at putting on the faces that you need to put on to make it to be convincing, while also doing like this really strenuous, sort of physical performance. And so, yeah.
I also think.
Oh, go ahead.
I also think that they have really good comedic timing, that they know when to have those facial expressions when they're doing it. They know when to make it struggling, when to make it funny. So they have a really good chemistry together. Plus, I think with the director that they have, Lau Kar-Leung is very good with working with these two. He really knows how to bring out the best in his brother and in Kara. I think in the movies that the three of them, they kind of form their own, not iron triangle. I don't know what kind of triangle you would call it, but the three of them together in one movie is
yeah, it is like an iron triangle. Yeah, it definitely is that kind of a thing. I would agree with you. What did you guys think of the lion dancing?
I didn't realize there were so many rules to lion dancing.
I didn't either. I don't know if they made them up for the movie, if those were real rules. I was kind of curious about it, but I didn't actually do the work to investigate it, which I should have done. But I thought it was a cool framing for the start of the film. Because they list the rules. I actually have them written down. And they're not supposed to be the complete set of rules. It's just to get you to understand that like there are rules of conduct that they're supposed to follow when rival schools or different schools have lions dancing together. And the first one is a lion should never smell the other's butt. It achieves nothing and provokes a fight. The second one is when a lion is close to another, no blinking is permitted. And the other one is one can't approach the other lion with a raised foot. And so these are all things that either I think that the rear smelling the rear, I think, is sort of a provocation because it implies like a mating ritual. And
yeah, I think they went into a bit more detail partway through the movie and explaining the rules. And they said that if you're sniffing the rear of another lion, then you're sort of implying that the other lion's a female, and if you're blinking, then that's just like you're not, like, what's the way to say in English? Like they're not worthy of your attention. Basically, is what it roughly translates to, I think. But it didn't really. I missed what the actual explanation for the whole raised leg thing was. I'm sure there was something else there.
Okay, yeah, I didn't catch that one either.
Neither did I.
But I also
thought that was it.
Oh, go ahead.
I just thought the beginning was a great setup, because when the evil school comes in, you see that they break every single rule that was stated at the beginning, which is just going to amount to bigger trouble later. But I thought it was really cool how they set it up.
And I like the fighting, I like the choreography of the lion dancing, how it starts as this dance, then it becomes a fight, like a fight dance or a dance off between the two lions, and then it becomes like an actual fight. And it sort of evolves into that, and so they're sort of balancing the like having to puppeteer this lion costume and fighting one another, and I thought it was really worked visually.
I was actually really impressed with the tower at the very beginning, like when they had like the 3-tiered tower, and Yin was like lion dancing at the top, and the tail of the lion was like stood on one leg on the pole behind him. I was just thinking, wow, that is some serious physical prowess going on there.
Yeah, no, this movie is chock full of that stuff too, because people are just like in every scene doing all kinds of things that would be difficult to achieve, and again, it's pretty impeccable. That's one of the things I like about Lau Kar-Leung, is how consistent the quality of the physical performances tend to be. and the choreography itself.
I wonder if that's actually a nod back to a lot of the martial arts actors in movies from this time period come from martial clubs as well. They do lots of lion dancing. I wonder if this was just like their nod at the fact that many of these stuntmen actors come from a background where lion dancing was just something that they had to do on the.
Well, I mean, and I don't know, but what I feel with Lau Kar-Leung is that he definitely has a lot of respect for the real martial arts aspect of it, and so I think what this movie really ends up embodying is like what it means to be in a martial club, and and again, like the rules of conduct that are so important to being a member. And I think the lion dancing part kind of is meant as it's like a, I don't know what you would call it, like it seems like a traditional thing that is meant to reflect the principles that they're talking about. Like it's ceremonial, but it has meaning and purpose to it. And so I think that is maybe why he chose to use it. Sort of like, remember when we did what was the one set in Thailand? Was it Duel of Fist? The Chang Cheh movie set in Thailand with the kickboxing, and they have the Ram Moy. That's a similar type of thing. That's like a traditional sort of ceremony, but it's like loaded with all this kind of meaning and importance that embodies the values of the style. But yeah, I don't know. What about the fight scenes in general? Like, were there any that stood out to you guys, or did you have any particular observations about them?
I think Dia mentioned the last fight scene already in the tiny corridor. Like that was definitely
that's my favorite.
The most outstanding fight scene in my opinion in the movie. Like there's just something nice seeing Gordon Liu going through the different sort of, I say stances, well, not really stances of the Hong fist, the Hong style fist, right?
Well, he keeps shifting styles a lot during that fight.
Well, he was showing all the animal sets in the Hung fist. He was doing a lot of the, he did the snake, he did the panther. He was doing each individual set from the animal styles.
Yeah, because the Hung Gar fist has like encompasses a lot of these form things. I mean, we have the sorts of tiger and tiger crane, and then the 5 animal style, and then he Gordon Liu even uses the iron thread fist as well, which is all just sort of stuff that which he eventually sort of consolidates all into like a separate set of forms, which is passed down even to nowadays as the Hongkar fists. But it was definitely nice to see the different traditional forms of the martial arts and being displayed and to be fair, I guess we mentioned a lot about Wong Fei-hung, but not much about the Johnny Wang's character, right?
He was responding with similar but slightly different styles.
Like I don't know if we're missing like half of the sort of scene there because we're not really sure. I'm quite like, we see a lot of movies which involve Wong Fei-hung and the Hong Gar fist sort of stuff, right? But we don't really see much of like he's supposed to be from the north, right?
But
his character was.
Yeah, his character was from the north, but he did display several of the styles that are known from the north. Like he was doing the mantis at one point. You could see his fingers
he did mantis in response to snake, right? Wasn't that the?
Yeah, I think so. Yes.
And he did eagle claw in response to tiger claw. So it seemed to be he was going for like it was very poetic in how they were matching their the techniques against each other. And And then it got cool too when as the walls narrowed down further and further, and they had to adjust the stances and the styles. And I think eventually Wong Fei-hung, he uses the Abyss Wu Mei technique, which is kind of like Wing Chun style. Which I think you were talking about that, Kenny, right? That's the
the iron thread fist.
Yes.
And so it was really interesting to watch because it visually the evolution of the fighting matches the environment as they're going. And then the fight ends with Shan Zhang sort of leaping into this frame and then sticking his foot out and just touching the tips of his toes to Wong Fei-hung's throat. And it's a little unclear, if that was, I guess that was like a victory move. Like that's how I kind of read it. Like he sort of seemed to have won the fight in that moment, but it wasn't entirely conclusive because it was so friendly.
Yeah, I feel like that was more him acknowledging him that because as he's sort of leaving, he does acknowledge that Wong Fei-hung is a junior, but he was going to be make a name for himself in the future, but for now he is still a junior type of thing. It's sort of attitude I got from him. Like he appreciates Wong Fei-hung's potential.
Yeah, no. In fact, what he says when he leaves is he addresses the masters, and he says the boundaries of martial arts comprise a boxer's moral virtues. This trip to Canton has broadened my horizon. And then he tells Qi Ying that he is the best among the tigers, and that his son is best among the second group. And so it was, it was an interesting ending because he's sort of like the big bad in the movie, but he's kind of I don't know. He kind of assumes almost a little bit of something a hero would normally do at the end of a film.
But I don't really see his character as the big bad because I feel like the school that he's working with is manipulating him to be the big bad, but he's the big enforcer of the rules and the gentleman's code of conduct and trying to keep everyone out of trouble. He even tried to keep his own friend's school from breaking the rules, but they just didn't listen. So, it was really cool to see him play an honorable character because usually Johnny Wang is the big evil bad in the movie that ends up getting slaughtered, but to actually see him walk away with a sense of responsibility and a sense of humility and being the typical hero in a way, kind of.
Yeah, no. When I said he was the big bad, all I meant was that I thought he occupied the space of the big bad in the movie. Like he was the guy.
Well, he was the antagonist, I'd say, but he wasn't necessarily the big bad. I mean, the big bad, was quite clearly the Liu family, I'd say. Despite the fact that they're the ones with the evil intentions. While the main opposing force was Johnny Wang's character, if that makes sense. Despite the fact that he was the opposing force, he wasn't the one who was with the malicious intentions.
No, that's what made it so interesting was that he's like like you say, he's like the antagonist, but he is he is the one kind of keeping the bad guys in line throughout the whole movie. In fact, we should probably talk about the betrayal scenes. We already talked about the one at the brothel, but the one at the theater that occurs when they decide to set up the Wu Ben and the Zheng school by pretending to invite them to their theater without actually inviting them, and so when they get there, they're watching the show, and then they request tickets, and then they can call the yamen in to say that they didn't pay for their seats. And the reason that they're able to do that so effortlessly is because Shan says he knows nothing about opera, so he doesn't want to go to see it, and so he's not going to be there to cause any problems. And when he does end up showing up, he sort of stands there at the door and refuses to participate because he realizes sort of a dishonorable situation. But I don't know. What did you guys think of the theater scene in general?
I thought the way they just sort of quietly boarded up the whole thing, the whole place was pretty intense, in my opinion. Actually. I wasn't really sure how it was going to go. The way they sealed up the whole place and everyone surrounding the group and even the rest of the audience, and then they started pulling out weapons as well. I was just like, well, this just reminds me of spoilers of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Yeah, it's a very Red Wedding type situation. And yeah, you don't know how. I mean, it's the thing is, even though like Lau Kar-Leung generally doesn't get into Chang Cheh territory, he can when he wants to, and at that moment you don't know. Oh, you see them start to board up the room, and you're wondering, is this going to be a slaughter? Are people going to start getting killed? And it is quite it is a pretty intense scene for that reason.
Yeah, and I think the sort of when Johnny Wang shows up at the door, it was nice. Well, he's obviously like very conflicted standing there because he can tell that Wang Fei Hong was a person with integrity and honor that he respects, and he knows that he wouldn't do something as stupid as like not paying for a theater ticket. So he knows that the Liu family. I feel like we say that the Liu family is manipulating him, but I feel like throughout all of this, like he is his own person, and it's just out of convenience and the fact that he made friends with Master Liu is the only reason sort of like he's staying there. Really, like it's not particularly like attached either way. Like he's just friends with him, and if he can do a friend a favor, by helping him stand out, for the cloth and rice scene or that, and sending the guests off, that type of thing. Like he'd be happy to do it. But I feel like if he wasn't gonna actually do anything like against his principles, or even if I think it was clear that the Liu people weren't the greatest, weren't the most morally upright among the masters.
Well, and he was the one after the theater scene who gets them to apologize and go to the Wuben school and sort of promise to give them rice and clothing, as compensation. And there's that great scene after when Gordon Liu and Kara Hui go on behalf of their schools to receive the compensation. And they have that martial contest where they unfurl the fabrics and they sort of test each other's stances, and then they do the thing where they're stacking the rice.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting way of trying to have like a contest instead of just all out fighting, just to use some kind of everyday items or to use your gifts as your way of doing some kind of battle to see who's better and to get over on the other person. But I think they really held their own. I wish Gordon would have let in the story, I wish that Kara would have been able to do some of the work on the fabric.
Yeah, it was kind of. I do feel like her character didn't get a shine enough in that scene. She got a shine in a lot of the other scenes. Like there were a lot of really great fight scenes with her in it, but in that one they kind of didn't put her at the forefront of it, or they both of the tests were sort of relegated to Gordon Liu there, and that scene also reminded me a bit of Dirty Ho, because there was like, again, the whole face saving thing and the whole like we're there's this whole undercurrent of conflict going on, but it's masked by the politeness of giving a gift of rice and giving a gift of clothing. And it's just really, and the whole movie is like that. Like there's all these scenes where people are, where the Wu Ben master of Wang Fei Hong's father is constantly trying to help people save face, and so I don't know, that scene in particular really seemed to be in that vein.
Yeah, and when it comes to sort of martial arts clubs and all that, like even in modern day stuff, like it's like, I think I've spoken about it on previous podcasts, but the idea of face in Asia is so huge and so toxic that it's one of those things where face is just such a ridiculous thing in concept, but everyone adheres to it anyway, and you get people who have higher sort of standing in society acting as a middleman. Where both parties have to give him face, otherwise, it's rude in some way, and there's no real consequence for not giving face to anyone except they might hold a grudge against you. But it's just, I guess it's just the I don't know. It's anyway.
No, that's it. I mean, actually, there's we've had Deathblade on the channel a number of times. He had a whole video, I think, on face and his experience as a Westerner living in China and sort of encountering it for the first time. Maybe I'll link to it because it's pretty eye opening. But yeah, I think what I like about how it operates in a movie like this, though, is it gives like an otherwise violent scene like just like an air of dignity. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of like the there's it's, and you see it in a lot of movies where they'll do things like that. Like even in Dragon Inn, there was that scene where they're sort of the bad guys have a table and the brother and sister go to the table and they're and they're trying to get them to drink poisoned wine, but there's still this degree of politeness they have to adhere to, and so they're like using like they're putting the wine glass on the edge of the sword, and sort of she's got to sort of use her fingertips to push it away, and it creates interesting choreography for the screen. But yeah, I don't know. What about some of the other aspects that we might have overlooked here? Was there anything else in the movie that we didn't cover that was significant?
Oh, I just want to mention, like, I thought the costuming, like, it wasn't like outstanding in any way, but it was all sort of very well done, and I liked how the schools were very distinct from each other, and despite the fact that they were distinct, you still got a sense of sort of, I say camaraderie, but there's a very like similar hues in the outfits for the the Tian Show club and the Wuben club. They're sort of like, they're different colors, but they're very similar in shade, but they're also very different from the Master Lu's club.
Yeah, I thought the color selection worked really well here, and I think also the choice of clothing and attire fit the fight choreography really nicely. Like especially like in that last scene, you really like Johnny Wang and Gordon Liu both have similar types of trousers and shoes, and it highlights a lot of the stances and footwork that they're doing. And so I think the outfits were all well selected. Even the Peking opera stuff was really cool too. Like it's only in the background, but it felt like they paid attention to those kinds of details.
I think that Lau Kar-Leung is very good with the details. He's really good eye for putting everything together. The right amount of humor, the right amount of fighting, the right amount of picks the right people for the right characters. It's just something that he does very, very well. Yeah,
no, and the humor in this was really good, I thought. I mean, some of it, can be difficult because of translation into English and stuff like that. But there's that whole scene where they move their sashes around so that they can act like masters in town, and then they bump into an actual master who's on his way to their school or to one of their schools, and he basically realizes that they're lying, and he takes umbrage with it, and he kind of roughs them up a little bit. And then they have to, and then the father is irate. And again, the scene where they're buying off the two big guys, but also the scene where where the watermelon scene with Johnny Wang, where he's going to buy the watermelon, and he doesn't quite understand that this guy is coming up to him and paying him to take a fall in a fight. He just thinks the guy is being generous or ridiculous. And then, moments later, he's buying his drunken chicken, and Kara Hui comes in, and she does the same thing, and he just thinks they're being strange, and he doesn't quite pick up on what's going on, and it leads to the Yin Lin character getting the crap beat out of him, basically.
Oh, one thing that might have been missed, due to language issues, might be that his accent was slightly off. I think he was actually playing the part of a northerner and the pronunciations and stuff. So when he was saying chicken, the waiter, yeah, he was saying chicken in a way that the waiter wouldn't understand.
Oh, okay.
Although I think it might. Okay, so this is where the difference between Cantonese and Mandarin might be an issue here as well. Because if it was filmed, if this was like shown in Cantonese, I feel like his character might have been speaking with like a sort of a Mandarin accent, as opposed to Cantonese. But because the whole movie on Amazon Prime was in Mandarin, I don't know if that was like sort of something that's also glossed over or not.
So they have to do a Mandarin accent in Mandarin, basically.
So they had to make it more like country bumpkin style Mandarin, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, that's always a tricky thing, especially when I mean, yeah, that definitely didn't, like, I didn't pick up on anything in the chicken scene related to that, so that definitely didn't carry over in the subtitles. But that's kind of interesting. And I think overall like you were saying, the blend of humor and all the other components is like a lot of Lau Kar-Leung movies. It just all kind of works and is nicely balanced. I think that's really the key thing. He balances movies well, and he really he does a good job of working getting the actors' skill levels to meet the needs of the choreography. Because I feel like in a lot of movies when I watch them, I can see the slippage between the performance and the like what the choreographer was intending to happen, maybe, and what what ends up happening when a human tries to perform it, and very rarely do I see those slippages in Lau Kar-Leung movies. But yeah, so I don't know, any other details that we should go over before we.
This is a small detail that I'm just throwing in there, but there were some snippets from the music snippets from Masked Avengers that I recognized in this movie.
That's interesting.
And they were both made the same year.
I wonder if that has anything to do with it, because I actually do admit I didn't notice much of the music in this movie. The one thing I noticed actually was the sound effects. And I sort of got me thinking about sound effects in martial arts in general, because it's funny that like a lot of the sounds they use are not particularly realistic. Like they'll use, like when a person is squeezing another guy's like elbow or arm, they'll use a sound effect that sounds almost like a person rubbing a balloon or something. Like it's a very sort of rubbery kind of sound that that human skin just doesn't make, but it ends up really working somehow. And I think that the way that the sound effects are made and selected enhances the action, even despite the fact that it often doesn't have much connection to what you would actually expect that to sound like. But yeah, so I don't know, it's just a thought. But yeah, so I don't know, any other observations?
No, I guess like like I said, I found this movie very enjoyable overall. It's like you said, it wasn't so much about the plot so much as just following the characters from scene to scene, and it just being very enjoyable to see how the characters interact and the way the scene plays out. Like you know, there's probably not going to be any sort of major plot twists or whatever, and it was just something very easy to watch, I think, and I found myself quite engaged and enjoying all aspects of the characters.
This is my fourth time seeing it, and it's like I picked out a couple new things this time that I'd never seen before.
Yeah,
so it's a really good movie.
I had a similar experience. I felt that, like, on rewatching this movie, you really got a lot. Like, it got better every time I saw it. Actually, it's definitely one of those kind of movies, and you notice more things about it as you watch it, and some of the details that I maybe misunderstood on my first viewing, were clarified in further viewing. So it's definitely worth taking a second look at it, or a third, or a fourth. But yeah, so I guess this is our again, we're doing a Kara Hui month, so we're celebrating her works. But we've already talked about a lot of her really good movies. So I have if you go to the blog page, you can see links to all of the previous Kara Hui films that we've discussed or reviewed. And I think it's probably worth people going there and checking out, because we have like My Young Auntie and films like that on there. And yeah, so we'll be back on next week with another Kara Hui film. And until then, we will talk to you later.
Fire!